Welcome to Climify, the podcast that connects climate scientists and design educators together so that we can help combat our climate crisis in our classrooms. The discussions on this program are geared to help you climify your syllabi to assign projects that not only teach design fundamentals, but also can have a positive impact on our climate.
My name's Carissa Cabrera. I am a marine conservationist, an educator, and the founder of the Conservationist Collective, which is an impact company and organization based out of Oahu in Hawaii. And I create content under the online handles Carissa and Climate, but we also have the Conservationist Collective on Instagram and TikTok and our website and our newsletter and all the things.
Earlier this season, in our 8th episode, I learned from soil expert Lainey Signer how soil was extremely important for our climate. A friend told me that as much as soil is important, our oceans might be more. So I looked into that. I found the Conservationist Collective and our guest today, Carissa Cabrera. She taught me in the interview you're about to hear that yes, oceans are vital to the health of everything on our planet. However, without healthy soil, oceans can deteriorate, causing a loss of marine life and in turn, hurt us. Everything is connected, a phrase you should never forget when you create, when you teach, and live your life. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Carissa as much as I did. Well, welcome, Carissa, to Climify. I'm happy to have you on this special edition to end season 2. Special gift to our listeners to end the year. So thank you for being on.
Thank you for having me and congratulations on completing the season.
Yes. And you're on season 2 of your podcast. So I imagine you're winding down as well.
Yeah, our podcast, Sustainability in the Sea, does similar but not the same things as Climify, but just educating people about the importance of our blue planet and solutions. So, yeah, winding down a season as well.
And you're on the other side of the microphone this time. How does it feel?
I know I'm trying to do more of this, trying to have more interview conversations. So
Yeah.
this is me showing up in that way, but I guess we'll see. It so far is not too intimidating.
Well, you have the radio voice, so it all seems to work out.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I wanted to ask you a lot of questions today. So I'm in the essence of time, I'll get right to it. And you have a very interesting background and what you do currently. So I'm interested in just what led you to the work you're doing in marine biology and starting this great organization that you have started.
Yeah. Whenever I share this, I always feel like it sheds a lot of light because so many people are always asking, like, how do you get where you are? And I'm relatively young. And so basically, I pursued marine biology. I didn't specialize till I got my master's degree because the undergraduate college that I went to actually didn't have a marine science program. And I found myself in Hawaii studying marine biology in a 2-year program. And I always wanted to specialize in megafauna, which is like protected species, like the dolphins, the sea turtles of the world. And I really learned a lot about the threats that the ocean was facing in
Mm.
school, and it quickly pivoted to conservation. And then just through the plight of finding a job after graduation, I found myself on like a very nonprofit track. So I had been on like leading a club or an organization at a college that went 501(c)(3) and became a nonprofit. I'd worked at a lab and started program. I worked in really like grassrootsy organizations where
Mm.
you carry a lot of responsibility. Um, and then after years of working in the nonprofit space with animal rescue, and we have a lot of endangered species in Hawaii, um, I felt like I had a lot of experience building programs and managing people. And then during peak lockdown of COVID in 2020, I think everyone was reflecting on their lives and
Yeah,
yeah, everyone. And I made
know.
the decision to start my own thing. I felt like I had been given a lot of the tools with my previous experience to do it. So I founded the Conservationist Collective in 2020, and I guess we're actually about a week before our 2-year anniversary.
2-year anniversary.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Amazing.
I know,
Yeah.
time
So
flies.
yeah, so when you were, going through school and everything, well, even before that, when you were younger, was the water something that you cared about? Like, were you a swimmer or, like, did you
I
live
know.
by the ocean? Did you live in
Yeah, so
Hawaii?
no, I had never been to Hawaii before I had moved there
Yeah,
for school. I think that So I grew up in Arizona, which is a landlocked state, but it's also really close to places like California or Mexico, which I had the
right.
privilege of visiting with my family growing up. And so I always tell people like the ocean stayed really special to me growing up because it was something that wasn't accessible all the time. And, we could only see every once in a while on vacation. And my parents were just really proactive about like getting me in the water and learning how to snorkel when I was young. And I think that when you're like, that curious about the world, and then snorkeling is such a it can be scary the first few times you do it, but actually being able to be in the ecosystem is, like, really life-changing.
Mhm.
I was not originally gonna pursue marine biology in high school when I was, like, in that decision-making phase of my life. I was gonna pursue, photography, and then I ended up watching a documentary in an AP English class that was an assignment. She let us, like, just analyze a documentary, and the one that we chose was about dolphins. It was called The Cove, for anyone
Oh my
listening.
gosh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was over after that, and,
Yeah.
but it was a
Who
very
doesn't love dolphins?
Yeah, exactly. So the documentary would shed light on the way that dolphins are treated in a certain part of the world that drives the, captive entertainment industry, and I just remember being like, "Well, this is what I'm dedicating my
Mm,
life to," which is interesting. I don't work in that space, but I just remember it being like an aha moment for me when I was
yeah.
17.
But when I found you on Instagram, I said, "I have to talk to you," and
That's
I
really
wanted to be a marine biologist when I
what?
yeah, I know. It's a little known fact about me, and I think it was, like, in middle school, I think I was the most interested in being a marine biologist. I don't think I even knew what they did.
Yeah, it's just like how it was marketed. I always talk about that with my partner, like, it was just like Nat Geo and, like,
That might
exploration,
have been it, or watching all these, like, uh,
Discovery Channel.
yeah, animal documentaries on, whatever, PBS or whatever cable channel I watched it on, and I was so set on moving to San Diego. I was gonna go to Scripps in San
Yeah, me
Diego.
too.
Yeah,
The
and then I think my dad told me that, "Oh, he has this program that he bought into where I have to go to a public school for college in the state of Michigan." And I was like, "I guess there's no marine biology in Michigan," so I just kinda
very
which
specialized.
probably there was, I just didn't do my homework, and I went into design, so I don't know.
Well, hey, all the work you're doing now still really helps the ocean,
Yeah,
so full
yeah,
circle.
I still have a big interest in marine biology, so I'm here to learn today from
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a general term, right? Like, there's so many disciplines and niches inside of it, and I think that's part of the learning in college about, like, "Oh, do I really wanna do this?" Because, you kind of go through this awakening where you're realizing, oh, what it was promoted or marketed as maybe when I was making these decisions when I was younger isn't necessarily what it is.
Yeah,
And then that's when a lot of people make the decision to either leave or stick with it in the form that they
I
chose.
think
And I
it was
think,
probably Jacques Cousteau. I think
yeah,
that was who I was
yeah, the Bill Nyes, the Steve Irwins, the
right,
John
yes, Bill
Does,
Nye was another one.
yeah, they're actually a lot of the reason why I prioritize media so much in our
Mm,
company, just because it's everyone you talk to, it's like, yeah, that's the stuff that got me stoked about it originally. It's like, we gotta get access to people, especially in landlocked states.
yeah, so you're not only a marine biologist, you're a CEO,
Yeah.
and you're a creative director, which I find super cool because, of course, in the creative field. Is that based on, like, your photo background, or how did the creative director thing happen for you, and how do you implement everything,
Yeah, so, let
organization?
me give, like, a little bit of background because 'cause we're not necessarily, I guess, a traditional organization, and I say organization we are a for-profit, but I say organization because we work primarily with nonprofits. So We basically founded me and my partner, we founded who's also a marine biologist. We founded the Conservationist Collective, um, as a community and media platform about marine conservation, ideally so that young people could, one, find peers that care about the same things that they do or learn what they care about, and also, like, use media to reach those people. So, um the creative piece of it, like, yeah, I did have, like, a lifelong interest in photography and things like that, but I also was always someone who, like, edited little videos, and
Mhm.
so was my partner, and we saw, like, oh, the rise of short films, and we were thinking to ourselves, like, there's a huge niche that's being carved out with, like, the way that we've adopted not only just social media, but technology in general, and it's only gonna become, wider, and
Mhm.
so when we founded the Conservationist Collective, we knew that media was gonna be the primary tool that we use to kind of advance everything, which is why, we have a strong social media presence, we have a blog, we have a podcast, as just carve outs of entry points for people. But, the creative director piece of it, I think, comes from a lot of the content that we actually produce. So like storytelling and scripting and how we present information. I do a lot of that. And then my partner, who's an incredible producer, does so much of the actual nitty gritty in the application and
Yeah,
kind
you
of
need that.
yeah, he's incredible. But essentially the Conservationist Collective is, I guess, capitalizing off the fact that all of us wanna learn things in a convenient way and in an entertaining way, and, instead of, the Steve Irwin or Jacques Cousteau episodes that we watched growing up, it's
Yeah.
something else, and we're trying to be that something else right now,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
It does. So maybe can you elaborate more about that? And that seems to be leading into your mission of
Oh, yeah, of
this
course.
organization. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so another reason I wanted to work under the umbrella of this organization was because I care a lot about so many different things, and I didn't want to niche specialize. And I'd worked in animal rescue for so long and animal response, and I was a little burnt out. Honestly, it was hard to be on the side
Yeah.
of like the challenge instead of like the solutions, right?
You were you
So
acting as like as a veterinarian basically for like injured dolphins?
I was acting as like field and stranding response for dolphins, sea turtles, seabirds, and seals, which are like the primary megafauna that are protected in Hawaii. And it was like, necropsies and disentanglements and
Oh man.
dealing with the public and for years. And it was so incredible. I think it shaped me definitely to where I am. I really wanted to be on the side of solutions. And I had the opportunity to build some solution focused programs when I was affiliated with other nonprofits. And that really showed me that I wanted to be part of solutions for the long haul. So
Yeah.
um at the Conservationists Collective, our main goal is to like amplify and scale ocean climate solutions in like a local and collective way, ideally for our blue planet. So um, we work with nonprofits. So we'll like go in and build a program for them or make sure their media is strong or create media for them. But then we will also work under grants to advance, like we've produced a short film that's on water bear that is kind of like an inspiration or entry point for young people. And then we have different projects and programs that I'm really passionate about that we can dive more into, but
Yeah,
that
definitely.
really highlight like localized solutions. So right now we're funding like these coral outreach signs that talk about the importance of coral reefs at like a very popular beach on Oahu. It's like considered one of the most famous beaches in the world. And so people are there all the time and they just
Mhm.
don't know they're stepping on coral and they just don't
Yeah,
know.
that's terrible, right?
Yeah, and a huge piece of this is also that I have, like, about 9 years in specialized experience in education, and so I would run education outreach programs for these organizations, and I was, a middle school teacher for a year too.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So, like and so I, like, really tailor education outreach materials to be, like, fun, like, something with this sign, we're, like, in these meetings, and we're like, "We need to make it Instagrammable," and it's like,
Mhm.
it's hard to have those I couldn't have those conversations in another organization because they wouldn't know what I was saying, but I'm like,
Right.
"No, we need this to be cute enough that people are gonna take photos of it."
Mm.
And, we also build middle school curriculum under grants, to enhance ocean climate literacy. And we've got cetacean connections coming out this December. So
That's a cool name.
yeah, thank you. The first one was called Ocean Connections. So then this one's Cetacean Connections. So I'm like, they'll all just build on each other if we ever make
Yeah.
more.
Well,
Um,
what are the biggest issues that you have found or that you know of for these megafauna in our oceans and the ocean itself?
yeah, thank you for asking that question. When I guess there's a twofold answer to that. When it comes to the megafauna, entanglement is a leading threat to all these, especially air breathing animals. And entanglement, is not coming from straws, it's coming from fishing gear,
Mhm.
illegal, unregulated, unmanaged fishing activities in the high seas. There's a lot of incredible people doing the work to remove derelict gear from our oceans. But I just wanted to highlight that because when you look up primary threats of all these endangered species, entanglement is usually in the top 3.
Yeah, I
Uh,
didn't know that.
yeah, it's really it's under shared, right? Which is
Yeah,
another why we wanna build a
we're
strong legal
sharing it.
platform to get it out. We're
Yeah,
sharing it.
yeah,
And then the main thing with the ocean is just that I think people don't see how the ocean plays a role in our global climate. Like, a huge piece of what we wanna do is let people understand that ocean conservation is climate action, and the ocean regulates our global climate. It creates 50 to 80% of the air that we breathe. You don't have to be on a coastline to benefit from the ocean because it's absorbed 90% of the heat from global heating.
yeah.
So
It's a big.
it's
It's
just
one of the biggest, right?
yeah, it's the biggest carbon
It's
sink.
the biggest.
And it's when we talk about like climate solutions, it's hard to know that the ocean hasn't even been included in policy yet. And so advancing those types of marine conservation things are helpful. And from my perspective, in the US specifically, which is a different ballgame than the global view of climate action, is marine conservation actually hasn't been politicized yet. And so even
Should,
though
right?
yeah, it's a good thing. So we can use the way that we're all so excited and love the ocean and love the animals inside it to help advance conservation solutions for the climate too. And that was another reason I wanted to start my own organization was just like doing watershed work upstream is helping the ocean. Like
Mhm.
talking to kids in classrooms is helping the ocean. So once you start like viewing it as all connected, you don't have to be like, oh, there's so much plastic pollution. I just want to focus on plastic pollution. You can like view it holistically, which is
Right.
how our earth works anyway.
Yeah, I think the plastic pollution is what I think a lot of us hear most about, and of course, that's
Yeah,
still a problem, but,
it is.
the entanglement stuff, like, that kinda breaks my heart, really, because I mean, I'm a vegetarian, and I really
Ew.
only eat fit you're a vegetarian too?
Yeah.
You would have to be in that job, right?
You'd think.
And you'd think, and I do eat fish if there's, like I'm out to dinner and there's, like, nothing I can get, right?
Yeah.
But I always feel bad when
So
I do
that's
that.
the other thing of this is like there's been such a shame focused individualist narrative about certain things. Like, okay, we live in like a privileged socioeconomic class where we have the
Yeah,
opportunity to choose vegetarian options. We go to restaurants that have vegetarian options. What a lot of people don't realize is that actually like a billion people in the world depend on seafood as their primary source of
that's true.
protein. So it's like we can't, yes, I promote plant-based eating in any form, imperfect form mostly. And but we have to, it doesn't absolve us from solving those really big
Yeah.
issues for seafood industry and sector because billions of people rely on it. So
Mhm.
we're still going to have to address it. There's, I know the entanglement thing can be a really saddening topic to talk about, but there's so many incredible people doing the work. Like there's this one program in Hawaii that's just got funded. They're putting a bounty on big fishing nets. So longline fishermen are going to be paid to collect fishing gear, and the bounty that's
That's
being
smart.
I know. And the bounty that's being is, like, more money than the catch, so when they're out there and they're like, "Oh, we got, like, a few hours left. Let's get gear
Yeah.
because get more," you know? And it's like an
A
economic
reward-based thing, that makes sense.
yeah. I know. So there's great people doing the work, so don't
Okay.
be too sad.
Well, I did see a lot of stuff about marine life and plastic pollution, and it inspired me to make a set of like 4 prints about like these mutant fish that were, either I guess, absorbed into the plastic. And I saw it's a kind of horrific video about a sea turtle getting a straw pulled out of its nose. I
That that video is, like, the reason I started my company, okay?
Oh, really? Because it's the reason
Yes,
I made all these prints is because I saw that and the turtle was crying or screaming,
it
and
was in a lot of pain, yeah.
it broke my heart. And I'm like, this can't happen again, right?
So,
So
that video first of all, what prints did you make? What was your action item after watching that video? You made, like were they outreach prints, like, to educate about plastic pollution?
they weren't really any action oriented thing. It was just sort of like a cathartic response. I took these old etchings of different kinds of fish, and I I did one with the turtle, for instance, and I called it turtle wax, and it was like almost as if the turtle wax container was the shape of the turtle was almost the turtle wax container, and he had this straw coming out of his nose.
Yeah,
They were fairly realistic etchings, and then I morphed them into kind of like mutant fish, and
yeah.
it was just sort of like a cautionary tale. I know fear doesn't really work as well, but it was just
No,
something
but
I
like
had to get out of my system, right?
yeah, that video inspired millions of people, and what I don't know if everyone understands is it also resulted in sweeping policy across the
Did it?
US.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, to ban straws, and
That's right.
and there was it was almost like because of the social shift of that video, the states didn't even need to do a top-down policy because restaurants knew they had to meet consumer and market demand, that they
Mhm.
started doing paper and reusable straws.
Right.
So, that was a whatever, like a minute and a half video that went viral, like, in 2018, and I remember feeling like, "If a video can do this, like, what am I need to be making
Right.
videos." And then,
Yeah.
thus, the TikTok career begins.
I have not watched your TikTok videos. Maybe I
Oh,
should.
goodness, don't. No, I still feel, like, weird and disconnected from it, but I'm like, it's such a powerful tool that I'm like, "Just get on there and make something."
Mm,
But,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, in one of the previous episodes that I had this season, it was with a soil expert, and she talked a lot about why healthy soil matters. And I posted this on LinkedIn, and one of my friends chimed in and said, healthy oceans matter too. And so now's my chance to ask you then, why does healthy oceans matter?
Well, healthy soil means healthy seas. So,
Does
we've
it?
got
Everything's
yeah.
connected.
It's all connected. So, runoff, especially in island regions and coastal regions, like our soils need to be nutrient rich and cared for and cultivated. And soil is a regenerative climate solution. So
Mm,
we're launching a compost guide next year because composting is not only a climate solution, it creates healthy soils, it connects you back to your food systems, and it helps the ocean. So um, yeah, it's all connected. And
yeah,
people who wanna learn more about soils, Kiss the Ground is an incredible documentary that talks about
it
it.
is.
Um, but healthy seas, I I don't wanna worry listeners. I think I just wanna talk a little bit about systems in place that maybe people don't understand. So, the ocean, we mentioned the ocean absorbs most of the heat. The ocean is our biggest buffer against the climate crisis. The ocean generates recreation, subsistence, clean air. Um, for example, like coral reefs are getting such a moment right now, I think, because they're um, so at stake. And, when I talk about the importance of coral reefs, I'm like, they're not just creating fish stocks for our local fishers to fish. They're protecting our coastlines. They're generate their fish larvae like nurseries. They're
Mm,
keeping sea turtles protected, and they're also like a huge piece of tourism destinations. And so, when I think when people like to your question of like why do healthy seas matter, it's like I think that everything we do is a result of a healthy ocean. And Sylvia Earle always talks about how we used to think the ocean was limitless and bottomless, and the past 15 years has shown us like it's not.
Mm,
And when you reach these tipping points in the ocean, and I'm sure you're familiar too with your work with climate, it's like we want to do what we can to not get us past those tipping points because those can be irreversible. Or they're reversible on geologic timescales, but they're
right.
mostly
Not in our
irreversible.
lifetime.
Yeah, they're irreversible. So,
Yes.
um, I think there's a lot of comfort in knowing how connected we are to the ocean, but it also means that we have like a responsibility to promote ocean health. And one of the campaigns that we work with an incredible youth advocate on is Ocean Health, Human Health. And it's so they're so connected. Plastic is the case study, the primary case study is you see like those studies that are popping out, like microplastics in your blood, like endocrine disruptors, like they're in um the placenta, like, all these studies are coming out
My
about how
God.
I know, how microplastics are, like, in us, and that can, alter some of our organ systems, and so, if people didn't care, like, about the way that plastic pollution impacts our ocean, we know that they will care about how it impacts their families and their
Yeah, that's
ability
a good point.
to feed families, and so, I've found, like, connecting it back to humans and, our self-interest and our day-to-day is all it's important for all issues, but it's also important for the ocean, so
Yeah, that came up for me when I was doing that mutant fish project in that I was reading about microplastics in fish, like you mentioned, because they were eating it in the oceans. And then we're eating the fish. So what are we eating? Right? Are we
we're
eating?
eating it.
Yeah, we're eating those microplastics.
About a credit card a week
Is
is
that?
the
Oh,
that's the study estimate from but that's an outdated study, it's a few years old now, but
so
that's that
more.
was
It's
the
that's more
high end.
then.
Yeah, it was the credit card a week was the high end estimate of the study, but yeah, roughly, you guys, credit card a week. Like,
And then what happens to those microplastics in your body, right? Do we know? We
yeah,
don't know.
so, a lot of the toxins in for those of you that don't know, plastic is refined from crude oil, which is a fossil fuel, so the plastic crisis is linked to the climate
It
crisis, which
is.
is linked to
Yeah.
the health crisis. And so, um, when you add, like, certain environmental factors to plastic, that can promote, like, toxin leaching. So, like, I'm, like, I try not to get soup to go, right, in styrofoam containers because, like
Yeah.
or have tea in, like, a plastic cup, right? Those are things that you can do to help minimize, in some ways, the toxins leaching out, but, um, at the end of the day, like, we live in a plastic world. It's pretty crazy to think that this was only scaled commercially, like, within the last 7 decades,
Yeah,
like,
like 1950s, right?
50s. It was the
Yeah.
50s. It's like when yeah, it was,
And
interest
water is the universal solvent. So if you are putting water a lot in plastic bottles, right,
yeah.
that's leaching into your water.
Yes, that study, that credit card study showed that there was, like, a significant difference in the amount of microplastics consumed if you source your water out of plastic water bottles. So,
Yes.
yeah. So it's like
I
building
avoid them like the plague, but I see them
yeah.
everywhere.
And so now it's like, "Oh, don't just get a reusable water bottle, like, for the ocean or for the environment, get it for
You.
yourself."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That can resonate, right? Because we are very into our own heads, right? And we care about ourselves first, which is
First.
fine, but we also need to care about others.
Yeah,
And
and
so it's a good motivating tool.
from our perspective, it's like we have to tailor our messaging for that to be effective, right? Because I care
Mhm.
more about being effective than I care about being like anything else. And so just make it about them. It'll be helpful.
Yeah. So you do a lot of media there. Do you work with any designers or
We had
how can someone get involved maybe as a volunteer or something
yeah.
with your organization?
So we do have a designer in-house. She's incredible. And she's a graphic designer and runs our
They're
marketing
the
too.
best.
Yeah, literally amazing. And it's fun to I'm a visual learner, like, it's so helpful to have that medium, right? So, we don't have a volunteer program right now. We do take interns sometimes, so I always tell
Great.
people, like, you can subscribe to our newsletter. It's called The Ripple. It comes out monthly with Blue news and Blue jobs and Blue internships, and then if we have a position, it'll be on there. But we want to focus on, like, really making an impact more than anything. I think that
Mhm.
there's a lot of people who are out there um, promoting and solutions, which is so incredible, and being communicators and things like that. But I get a lot of fulfillment and my purpose out of like doing solutions that I can see too. And so I really want to, I've created a boundary in our work where we allocate 50% of the time to that at a
That's
minimum.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're going to pause here for a few minutes to listen to some messages, and we'll be
Okay.
back to talk about more of that impact and climate action.
Where do young designers see themselves at the intersection of climate change and innovation, and how can we teach that intersection in the classroom? Designers are problem solvers, capable of imagining solutions for a more sustainable future. We have a bigger role to play in all phases of the design process, not just the beginning. My name is Rachel Cifarelli, graphic designer, recent college grad, and part of the Climate Designers EDU team. And after graduating, I realized today's classrooms tend to skip over that universal side of design. So if you're a design educator, I want to hear from your students. Help set in motion the first ever project that centers students at the intersection of design education and climate change. I want to know what your students think about sustainable design, how they see climate change impacting their future careers, and what even comes to mind when they hear the term climate design. Send your students to climatedesigners.org/edu/newwave-survey to take the 5-question survey or sign up for an interview with me. Help me inform a new wave of design education, one that teaches every designer how to be a climate designer.
Are you someone who loves the ocean, climate solutions, sustainability, and marine biology? Hi, I'm Carissa, a marine biologist and co-host of Sustainability in the Sea, a podcast for ocean people looking to find their way in ocean conservation. We sit down with wave makers doing awesome work to protect our blue planet, and you can listen to their story to help you build yours. Find us wherever you listen to podcasts.
All right, we're back here with Carissa, and we're going to be talking about impact and climate action. And you mentioned impact right before the break. And I'm wondering what stories or what initiatives need to be told better about the ocean to inspire more climate action.
Yeah, that's a great question. And we both work with young people. And my key takeaways from working with young people is that um, climate denial's over.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
that's
glad.
over. Yeah, I mean, well, I got my parents' generation is still kicking with their climate denial, but the point is that the young people that's over, and they've moved. Actually, they're really scared, and so
Yeah,
it's called eco anxiety, and n- it can be it can keep them from not acting right, and
yeah,
so a lot of communicators are pivoting to communicating solutions. And
yeah.
we've done that in many ways. I struggle in finding a balance point of sharing the reality while also sharing, positivity.
Mhm.
But that stuff motivates people more. And so what we're finding is that like young people, and when you're talking about climate challenges and the climate crisis and solutions, is you really got to highlight those like bright spots that make people stoked. I don't know if you noticed, we did it in this episode. We talked about entanglement, and then I highlighted a project
Yes.
that shares it. So it's like we want to communicate the reality of the situation and then be like, well, there's also a lot of urgency. Like, don't feel like your responsibility is absolved because this one nonprofit's working on plastic pollution. Like, you also need to find your place. And that's like a huge thing that we promoted at the beginning of the Conservationist Collective. We have a Find Your Place learning hub on our website where people can do like activities and find like book and podcast and film recommendations to learn more so that they can be like, this is the stuff that really gets me excited and that I could be
Yeah.
passionate about. So definitely solution focused communication is like a huge tool. And another piece, which we had a chance to speak about, it's a term we coined. I'm trying to write a report on it so that we can say that, but we're calling them
Trademark.
yeah, I know, I'm like, "I need to trademark this." It's
Yeah.
called, SEPs, conservation entry points, and, that would be, like, the sea turtle straw video. That would
Yeah.
be the cove, and creating a library of conservation entry points for young people is, like, key, right? Because we just talked about it, like, we think back about the times when were like, "Whoa, we wanna be marine biologists," and then that was a SEP for us, and so,
Yeah.
um I think those are really necessary to get everyone involved because we're not going to do the greenies are not going to do this alone. We need
No.
every sector and we need the private sector. We need policy. We need people to use their gifts and skills however they can. We need designers and all those things
Yeah, because that video with the turtle, I mean, that inspired the private sector to make changes
and policy.
and
And
policy.
yeah, and restaurants and all the things. So more steps.
Yeah, yeah. I saw some straws in a local restaurant. They were called straws. So they were made out of
Yeah. Straw.
straw. Yeah, loved it. Straws. It even
Compostable.
had a little sign that said straws.
Circular systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another question I've been interested in asking you because of your creative background is about the messaging and branding around climate change or climate action. And how do you view that current branding of it? And how, do you think we should change it? And if so, how should we?
Yeah. Amazing question.
No,
Uh,
thank you.
I think there's 2 parts to this. The way that the climate crisis is covered in the media, traditional media, like news outlets, is first of all, it's not covered
It
still.
isn't. No.
It's not. And there can be like a giant hurricane that killed many people and it's not covered. And they never say the word. And so there's that piece of it. So there's one piece of it that's like it's not being covered. Then when it is being covered, say in more like quote progressive outlets, it's not, it's all doom and gloom, which is
Mhm.
terrifying and really debilitating for many
Yeah.
people and feels like we can't do anything. So there's that traditional piece and it's incredibly unhelpful and I would go as far to say is extremely damaging to the movement. And then there's what's happening on decentralized media somewhat, which would be like social media, where you can tell stories of frontline people and like indigenous communities are being centered in films of how, they've stewarded their biodiversity. 80% of biodiversity is stewarded by indigenous groups. And so it's like that is not a known fact, let alone like a story that's being told. So
Mhm.
now we've got like this shift towards storytelling, excitement. Like it really is so exciting to know that every single job's going to be a climate job in the next 15
Yeah.
years. Like and that so many people can actually create the niche that they want to be in the world using climate and sustainability and the ocean. And so there's now like tools and there's relatability factors, now that we've got the rise of eco influencers, you can have like a friend or a mentor that you look up to that isn't actually that's on the internet, right?
Mm.
And so I would say like I want us to shift. First of all, we need to talk about it, but we need to talk about it in productive ways. And that work is, like I said, all being done like with the psychology of eco anxiety and
Yeah.
but I want to see it happening more with the ocean.
Yeah. Well, I feel like your organization is doing exactly what you just said in that, well, it's with the ocean, what you're passionate about, and you're finding the stories that tell the solutions and you're sharing them and getting people excited about it to either get involved, maybe come and help or potentially donate to the cause. So,
Yeah. There's this media company called Peak Action that where they're one of our clients and collaborators and they focus on general climate stuff, only on solutions. And so
Mhm.
if people are like really just want to be like, what's going on? That's helpful. They're such a great starting point for it.
Yeah, and I think as an educator right now, and you're dealing with that generation you mentioned that has eco anxiety, that is
Mhm.
worried, wants to help, doesn't know how, the assignments that you give them should be about the solutions and having them
And
communicate
real
those
world.
solutions. Yeah, not these posters about the apocalypse, right?
Oh, yeah.
Do this or we will be with the Walking Dead somewhere. So,
Mm. That's another thing. Yeah. Like the way Hollywood and movies, it's so apocalyptic the way they
yeah,
talk about it. And it's like,
it's extreme.
actually, we could have like thriving cities, which is where I think so much of your work ties into this, where it's like students can get their hands dirty now with educators that put that at the forefront, right? With climate design projects or sustainability projects. Like my main specialty is middle school students, but the work that I did in college, like I had a design project where I needed to communicate sustainable seafood, like in whatever medium, and I chose like a website, and
Yeah.
I learned how to make a website. Now I like make websites for nonprofits. So like
Yeah. You're a
that's like
designer.
yeah, directly
Yeah. Yeah.
transferable, like complete, like it's and as college students, that's the stuff that gets you to your next stepping stone in your career. It's not the classes you took, it's the projects you did in those classes,
Hmm.
um, that give you, like, tangible, skills that can be used for the planet.
Yeah. I just came back from this climate conference in Detroit, and Detroit's such an amazing city, right? And I grew up in Michigan, and I still love Detroit. And it's about 90% BIPOC, they said, in terms of its population, and it's lost more than half its population since its renaissance in the 1950s. But they're trying to make it a climate resilient community, fair, just, and green, because it floods. It's near water. And so they're very concerned about that. They're building in green infrastructure. And what got me at the end, because there were all the talks there were solution based, and I was very inspired. You're right. That helps, right? The solutions. And what got me was they said, we're building our Wakanda here in Michigan. And I was like, oh God, that's such a great way to talk about it,
Yeah,
right? This great place for the people living there. So
yeah. I want that to be happening in Hawaii too, like,
I
we're at the
know.
point where yeah, we need to meet all of our climate goals and commitments and things like that, but we need to be investing in adaptation and mitigation. And a huge gap in this that people are very rarely discussing is that needs to be financed. We need funding to go to
Yeah.
that stuff. Yeah.
I've been to Hawaii 3 times, and it seems that that's the problem, right? The tourism is the problem in
Yeah.
Hawaii to potentially stopping these climate goals.
Yeah. We're working on a policy right now. It's like our biggest project. It's called the green fee, and the green fees are actually used at tourism destinations all over the world. And you land, you pay a fee. We're looking at $50. Goes back to natural resources and conservation.
Yeah.
With our scale of our tourism industry, it would generate 400 to $500 million a year.
Wow. Yeah, I was in Kauai, and I remember hiking and driving around in this gorgeous, like, green, lush landscape, and then there was a landfill, and it was just like, "What?
Yeah, I
You're
know.
stupid creatures," right?
Our waste systems are so broken.
Right. Uh,
But that there's so much like opportunity there too, right? So I always
mhm.
try to say like there's an ocean of opportunity for
Love
you.
that. There's an ocean of opportunity.
Yeah. So
Well, we're
uh,
running out of time, unfortunately. This has been super fun, and I have my favorite question that I ask everyone, and that is to ask you to be a design educator for a few minutes here. And based on all your experience and work and knowledge, what would you do if you were asked to teach a design class? What kind of projects, or how would you put that class together, and what would you assign?
yeah. Um, well, I specialize in project-based learning for the middle schoolers, and I've created a handful of design projects for that grade level, right? So like super entry level. Like I had once they use like math and science to design like a rehabilitation animal sanctuary or something. Or um like in Ocean Connections, they each day learn a new skill. So they get to design like a social media post that has a call to action or something like
Yeah.
that. But with college students, you have such an incredible opportunity to kind of dive a lot deeper. And so
Yeah.
what I would do as an educator is actually just provide guardrails, like, um, about, like, requirements that would, get them the points or whatever, but actually leave a lot of freedom of how it comes to life. So, you know, find a topic that you care about, choose 3, dive into 3, and then choose 1, so that they actually get, like, a wide overview of 3 really, serious climate or conservation topics. And then I always do this practice where it's like, "What did you like when you were younger?" Like,
Hmm.
you were a kid. Like, I liked playing in kids and photography, right? And it's like, take those childhood passions and use them for your design
Yeah.
project. So, it could be an incredible poster series like what you did with the sea turtle video, or what I'm doing for the coral reef signage. But it could also be like an art installation
Hmm.
that speaks to the waste cycle. And that's all like the creative and artistic components of it. It can also be technical. Like, I have a friend who he's in Florida and plastic toys are always left all over the beaches. And so
Oh,
he does like a take a toy, leave a toy box, and is putting them at beach accesses. And it's like
mhm.
he designed that box and designed the cute signage and made it Instagrammable and all the things. And now it's preventing waste. And so
Yeah.
I don't think I would be very specific on what the requirements were. I would just give examples of other things for inspiration and then kind of let them choose based off their
Yeah.
passions and their skills.
Yeah. I could see myself in your class, and little
Would you
Eric
do?
could be a marine biologist finally.
Yeah, you could. You could do there's so much ocean innovation that can happen. Like, we gotta harness tidal energy, guys. Like, that stuff is
Yeah.
free. It's free.
Yeah. It's every
Like,
day too, every
yeah,
second of the day.
it's predictable. And so, just yeah, I think that's such incredible opportunities for students, what you're doing in the classes. It's like, it flexes that muscle in our brains where you have to make something from nothing,
Hmm.
and that's what we're doing here.
I could also see the students in your class going to your website, and finding these things that are issues with the ocean for them to, because they may not even know what issues are
There are.
happening.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so you have a
and the
great resource there.
yeah, the Find Your Place Learning Hub has so many things for you guys.
Perfect.
So check it out and, dedicate your life to the planet. That's what I
Of
tell the guys.
course.
Like, they
Yeah. And you had a great play on words there. You have an ocean of opportunity. Dive in.
yeah, dive in. Yeah, there it is. Wow.
Yeah.
There's
You said
there
that. It wasn't me.
it's time to get into the nitty-gritty stuff. So,
It is.
thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Carissa, thank you for being here. Where can we find you online again?
Yeah, so I create content under Carissa and Climate on like TikTok and Instagram, but the Conservationist Collective is also on TikTok and Instagram and Pinterest and LinkedIn and YouTube and all the things. But there's a lot of really free, amazing resources at theconservationistcollective.org that is like a great entry point for people. And then if you want more like long form listening podcast, Sustainability in the Sea also has a lot of episodes for you all. So,
Yeah. I'll
yeah.
definitely listen into that one.
Yeah, bopping around on the internet. That's what
Yeah.
that's
Well, thank you and best of luck to your organization. It's an amazing group, and I really am inspired by it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. This podcast is written, produced, and engineered by me. Designed by Bashul Rashik and Mark O'Brien, with social media strategy by Michelle Wynn. Music by Casual Motive. Well, that's officially a wrap this time for season 2. I wish you a wonderful holiday season, celebrating however you do, and I hope to see you again in 2023 for season 3, where Climify will focus exclusively only on solutions. We don't have time to only talk about climate action. We need to get busy. So, until then, keep on doing good work.
Thanks for listening to Climify. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. To catch all the latest on Climify, you can follow us on Instagram at Climify Podcast. Climify is part of Climate Designers. Learn more at climatedesigners.org/edu.